It's Hollie's Hotspurs, welcome back. Talking Tottenham every week, no better place to be sat. If it's a win, lose, draw, we'll be here for a chat. Best believe we tackle topics like Romero in the back. Heung-min Son, what can go wrong when he's on form? It's a
Hello and welcome to another episode of Hollie's Hotspurs Live, where we don't necessarily have a win to talk about, but we've got a decent draw, I think, to go into a lot of detail. And with me tonight, I'm joined by three fabulous guests. So first of all, I'm joined by Wynnie. Wynnie, it's amazing to have you on the show again. How are you, my friend?
I'm all good, thank you. Thank you again, obviously, for giving me the call up. It's always an honour. But yeah, I'm all good.
Good, I love it. And anytime, my friend, anytime. And we're also joined by Dan. Dan, how are you, my friend?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me back. Yeah, it feels like, because it's very early here in Australia in the morning, so it feels like I'm getting up to watch like a cup tie at the moment. So that sort of energy going on.
No, I love it. I love the dedication, Dan. I'd like to say thank you again for getting up so early to be on the show. I do really appreciate it. And we're also joined by Luke. Luke, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back on. I'm a bit jealous, to be honest, because both you and Dan have got the best backgrounds I think I've ever seen on any stream. So I need to up my game a little bit, I think. But yeah, no, I'm good.
I mean, I can't take much credit. Mine's kind of fake, whereas Dan's is like the real deal. So, but no, I appreciate
this is all
that.
fake. This is all AI behind me. This is all not real. Don't worry about that.
Oh no, I love it. But no, like I said, guys, thanks for coming on, and welcome to everybody else that's obviously in the chat as well. Evening all to you guys. But let's crack on with it because obviously we have a 2-2 draw to dissect. But we're going to rewind a little bit, and Winnie, I'm going to come to you because obviously going into this game, how were you kind of feeling?
I'll be completely honest. It's probably the most confident I've been against the Man United side, because I think, yes, we had a depleted squad going into it, but we're talking about a Man United side who weren't necessarily in great form, and we weren't in necessarily bad form. So in the build up to it, I was probably quietly confident. But I mean, this is the new me. This is the new Tottenham. This is the new everything under Ange. Just seems to be a lot more optimistic than usual. So I go into most games now, if I'm honest, with a lot more positive thoughts than I would do a couple of seasons ago.
Definitely. I think that is definitely the consensus with most Spurs fans. And Dan, the thing is for me, because obviously there was news that Mickey van der Ven would be back. There was obviously people looking on Twitter to see that Romero had travelled with the squad. So that being said, did that give you an extra boost of, oh, wow, okay, we're going to United, but you know what? We could go and do something here.
Yeah, like very similar to Winnie. Like it was kind of weird. Like we've got 4 or 5 starting players out, and it's just like, yeah, well, fine. I feel good about this. I'm not stressed. I'm not worried. Definitely having like Romero and Van der Ven back was a very, very nice boost. However, if we still had our short kings in centre back, like I also would have been confident. Like if we had, Davies and Emerson instead, it sounds arrogant, but I still probably would have had the same sort of calmness about it, because I feel like now, regardless of who we have in, we're playing like a very, very similar brand of football, even if the levels drop off a little bit from like our starting players to our reserves. So yeah, I was feeling pretty good as well.
Definitely. And I think that's the thing. I think everybody's kind of living under this Ange ethos at the moment. They're all buying into it. And then, Luke, this is the thing with me as well. The fact, I don't want to say I was quietly confident, but it is true. I think the way that United haven't been really performing recently, you're kind of going into this thinking, yeah, we can go do this.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we should be really, really disappointed that we didn't get a victory yesterday. Not based on the performance as such, because I don't think we were that good yesterday. I thought we were in parts really good, and I felt like in parts really bad. But going into the game against the Manchester United team, were probably the worst Manchester United team for a decade, I would probably say. They were there for the taking, and it's unfortunate that we couldn't, grasp it early doors and get on time. Maybe that's the illness that's been going through the camp. Maybe it's the fact that we have a depleted squad. But when you look at the starting lineup and you can see that your back four is your best back four you can have out of this side, gives you a bit of confidence. Forgetting about the midfield, we have like 4th and 5th choice midfielders in there. But, and then going on to attack, we have no Kulusevski, no Heung-min Son. But, I was definitely confident going into the game. It's just a shame we couldn't capitalise on that, really.
No, yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think it was annoying, but it was just great. So obviously, I know we'll get into it, but the way we came back, obviously going down once and then going down again, and we still managed to bounce back, which is this kind of ethos with Ange Postecoglou. But obviously, the game kicks off, Winnie, and obviously we're all on a high, and then all of a sudden, Man United kind of score. So what were you kind of thinking at that point?
I was gutted, obviously, but as you know, as you've alluded to previously, there was no thoughts in my head thinking we can't get back into this game and go on and win it still. Obviously, with it being a very early goal as well, that helped in the sense that we had a lot of game time to still play. But I mean, I've heard a lot of things on Twitter, kind of berating the defending on our half there. But I mean, look, Udogie got in there with a like a vital kind of interception / block, and the balls just fell to Hoyland, who. Look, I'm going to say this now. It just seems to be the case with Tottenham that players who are out of form come into form against Tottenham Hotspur and just pull something out of the bag. And I mean, look, credit to him. It was a fantastic finish. And I don't think there was anything that we could have done about it. But look, we had plenty of the game still to go. So there wasn't really much concern from me at that point.
I think that's the thing. I think we're kind of under this illusion now. If we concede early on, it's going to be fine at it. We're going to come back and hopefully do something.
Oh, definitely, and I agree on that point too. That it's even the commentators. I think they're like, and Hoyland hasn't scored for 17 years, but he's pulled it back today against Tottenham. Oh, and Rashford again. He's 19 months since, and it's just like, yeah, all right, fine. That's just going to be what happens here. But yeah, like it was. I still wasn't worried. Like it sounds weird. Like you go down a goal in like the first couple of minutes, and I think maybe if you're taking like a few seasons ago and, move back through the last few decades, whatever, it would seem that if we went down a goal at away at Man U, like that's within the first couple of minutes, like that is curtains basically. And it's going to be a long, painful afternoon. But no, like I was very calm. Like I didn't watch this game live because this was a 3:30 a.m. kickoff, which is just pushing it a little bit too much. So I did watch it in the morning. So had I been staying up and watching it live, I might have been still maybe a little bit more nervy about it. But overall, it's a really pleasant feeling, I think, knowing that if we go into games we concede, that there's still this calmness which the players seem to exude as well. Like they don't get stressed. So why should we get stressed?
I like that. And that's the thing. It's not panic stations anymore. And the thing is, Luke, I mean, I know Winnie's touched on it in terms of the defending. And I don't want to be too harsh or critical on players because I think we've done excellent so far this season and so far in these games. But for me, could Pedro Porro maybe have done a little bit more with the whole build-up with Rashford, etc. in that goal before, obviously, the ball fell from Udogie's tackle to Hoyland?
I think definitely there's a mixture of like some elements of poor defending and some elements of incredible luck as well, because Pedro Porro, for some reason, against Marcus Rashford, even in defensive positions, was very in field as opposed to being out wide. Like often you'd see Marcus Rashford in loads and loads of space to Marcus Rashford's left or Porro's right towards the touchline, but all he would do then is just go down the line. And as Dan and Winnie alluded to, like Marcus Rashford hasn't scored a home goal at Manchester United this season. And yet he does against us, And so I think when I said there's elements of luck with that goal as well, like Hoyland takes one step to the left to get out of Rashford's way. And at that point, it ricochets off Udogie. And then Hoyland's in, miles and miles of space. So I think if he doesn't move out of the way, those two run into each other. It's another calamitous Man United error. But instead, it leads to a Man United goal. But as you say, like, I'm not worried when we go 1-0 down, Back, as the others have said, like, I probably would have been concerned about what might happen, or do we have it in us to come back, or, we're going to get really thrashed here. But, it does, sit there and you think, do you know what? I'm not worried. There's still a long time to play, and I know we can outscore them. But I want to know quickly, Dan, when you don't watch the game live, do you know the score when you get up? Or do you try and avoid it and then rewatch it?
I go full lockdown, like hibernate in the mountains for the day. Like sometimes it's an effort, but I'll like mute everything. Like on your phone, how you can do like certain like sleep, do not disturb modes and stuff like that. I do have one called Spurs, which is basically any app that might notify me of something. I'll just get rid of that for the day until I see it. which it's only been spoiled once, which was by my Italian grandmother when she was visiting us. And then she just speaks no English. And this was years ago. And then she's just like, Tottenham, 2-1. And I'm like, how you were the last person that I thought would ruin this. But no, I just shut off everything, which kind of also feels nice too, to just ignore stuff for a day.
I wish I was so tech savvy that I knew how to create a separate Spurs do not disturb thing on my phone. That's unbelievable.
That's just how intensely I don't want to know the result, but I've had to research that to that extent.
I rate it though. I mean, like I said, you'd be able to watch the game with a fresh pair of eyes, sort of thing. And Dan, I'll stick with you actually, because obviously it didn't take us long to find that reply, and it was from Richarlison. So how pleased were you to see him on the score sheet once again?
Oh, so pleased! And I feel like all of us as fans do this. That I've been backing Richarlison all season. So I'm thinking, he scores, and I'm thinking to myself, I've got receipts. I can show that I was in his corner. I wasn't writing him off. But I think it's great. For so long we've been relying on one player, which for a long time was Kane. And then when Kane was out, it was Son. But it seemed like it's just there was this rule in the squad that we just had one player to sort of carry us through situations. But I'm just really happy that Richarlison's now starting to chip in with goals, assists, everything else. And just I feel like it sounds weird. I feel like a proud dad. I'm just really happy for him that he's feeling better. He's speaking more positively about everything now as well. And to see him be a threat from corners too is just amazing.
Definitely. And I think the thing is now he's on 7 goals and 3 assists, Wynnie. I mean, we've all sat there and thought, is he going to be the one? But it's nice now to see when we don't have the likes of Son in the team that he can produce the goods, can't he?
It's certainly looking that way. I mean, it's far off a return what we'd expect from the price tag of a player. However, there is definite improvement. And I need to go to this doctor or wherever he went, because oh my god, he's completely transformed into this absolute beast. And I mean, his goal yesterday, it wasn't an easy goal. It wasn't an easy finish. It was such a crowded area, and he's managed to find just that little bit of space to be able to glance it into the far post. So I was also one of these people that was kind of backing him. I'm not the type of person to kind of write a player off straight away unless they are really, really bad. But yeah, no, I was in his corner, and as Dan said, it's great to see him amongst the goals. And when Sonny's not there, we've got someone we can rely on, and that's great. That's what we've been missing, kind of backup players to step in when needed.
And the thing is, I don't want to kind of obviously compare us to them lot down the road, but I saw a stat, Luke, that said something like Richarlison has scored more goals than the front three for Arsenal in terms of individually. I think Saka's the only closest one was 6. So in that kind of respect, he is kind of, like we're saying, he is now coming to the forefront of doing something in front of goal for us, for Tottenham.
Definitely. And that's really interesting to know because, especially the media, in terms of how they portray Arsenal's young, plucky, Arteta's young, plucky men or whatever it is, it's nice to see that actually Richarlison, who everybody writes off, including myself, is actually, having an all right season in those comparisons. I still think there's a lot for him to work on, but he did look yesterday and in recent games, because I said to you, last time I was on this, actually, Hollie, I said he had the worst touch of any Brazilian footballer ever. Because his touch is so bad. But I'll give him his credit. He must have been working on his first touch, because yesterday he looked like, he was good on the ball. He looked good in tight spaces. He was able to lay passes off. And I thought, especially with that headed goal, if he didn't have the confidence that he has now, he would have, wouldn't have gone in, or, he'd have shanked it wide, or there's lots of things that could have happened. And so it is nice to see, because you want to write everybody off. It's nice to see him kind of finding some form. I don't think he's going to be the be all and end all, but it's good to see him getting some goals.
No, it really is. And I think, like we said, with the absence of Sonny, and I know that we've got other players in the team that are currently out, like Maddison, that can find that goal. It's nice to now finally see Richie producing those sort of things. And it's quite interesting, Luke, that you mentioned obviously writing players off. And Wynnie, I'm going to come to you for this one, because at the moment it seems the scapegoat at Tottenham is Brendan Johnson. So while we're on that subject of writing players off, what did you kind of make of him in the game yesterday and probably so far this season, so to speak?
He's been, yesterday was kind of how he's been with us the whole season. I don't think there was much difference. He's someone who clearly has bags of talent. There's no doubt about that. But he just seems to be lacking. I don't know if it's confidence. I don't know what it is that he's lacking, but he'll get into these great positions, using his speed and his agility, etc. And then it just seems to be like his final ball is lacking. And I mean, there was one flying around on a video on Twitter yesterday, I think it was, and it was a ball laid into Johnson, and all he had to do was lay it, across the deck for Richarlison, and he had like not a tap in, but he had an attempt on goal, and he's absolutely skied it over the top. So I think for a winger, what we use him for, his final product really does need to improve. But I mean, look, he's so young. And we've finally got a manager who will sit down with him and work on his weaknesses, whereas previous managers have just wanted players who are ready to go and to win things. So I'm not going to get on his back. I think he's a very, very good player. And look, Ange wanted him. And as far as I'm concerned, if Ange wanted him, then I want him.
No, and you make a good point in the fact that he is still very young. And Dan, I think this is the thing that I'm finding a real struggle with, because I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not one of these people to say I love every player nor the sun shines out of their bottom. But for me, I feel like Johnson has got so much that he can offer, and it's going to come. He's only been with us since this, was it September or the summer? So for you, is it more of a, we're having good performances, let's pick out someone that necessarily isn't creating or isn't doing what we think they should be doing, sort of thing?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like, I have faith that, in time, like, Johnson's cheeks will open up and the sun will start shining through. But it's very early. Like, he's young, he's had to come in, and I always think it's challenging. Like, if you get players coming in with transfers, similar in a way to Timo as well, where we have a couple of players out, suddenly they're playing more than they expected, or, they're not sort of being like worked into the rotation a little bit more. And I feel like if we had sort of still full strength across the board without injuries, that we would have seen maybe Johnson rotate in a little bit more, or he might be used more sporadically in certain games. But like, I've seen an improvement from him since when he first came in. And I think there's enough there to see that he can be a threat in certain situations against certain teams. And I just like now that, we can kind of change things up a little bit, even though we're going to play in relatively the same manner. But we know that now we've got options to go with absolute speed merchants down both wings if we need to. I think Johnson's improving, and yeah, I definitely agree that there's some things for him to work on. But I feel like, give him a full season of Ange, and I have faith that we've got, a pretty handy player there. He might not be like winning the awards for like, Spurs Player of the Year, that sort of stuff, but I think at least a very, very solid player that could definitely do a role in this team.
And I think that's the thing, Luke. I think obviously where we didn't have Decky, and at times obviously we've seen Decky play through the middle. Do you think maybe just to give, like Dan said, maybe Johnson a rest in the next game if Decky's obviously well again? Do you think that's probably a good route to go down to, give him a little bit of a rest?
Potentially, it kind of, we're getting on the realms of like Richarlison issues, I think, at the moment, in terms of like confidence. And once your confidence goes, it's really hard to then like bring that confidence back up again. And the only thing that's going to bring that back up again is a good performance, and not the fans doing what they're doing now. So actually what they're doing now is actually going to have even more of a hindrance on his performance. And bear in mind, this is a 22-year-old man who's just joined us. He's played left wing, he's played right wing. His versatility is excellent. He's quick. The only thing that needs to improve realistically is his final ball. And again, I think that just comes with confidence. Like Wynnie said, I think, if I remember rightly, the thing you're talking about, Wynnie, potentially Richarlison could have been offside, right? But we don't know, and we wouldn't have known until VAR got involved. But it's the confidence in his own ability to say, do you know what? I need to lay this across the floor, rather than I just need to get it seems like I just need to get my foot around it to get it somewhere near the box. And they're the bits that miss out. Because I think, as you say, if Decky had that moment, the ball would be in the back of the net and we'd be looking to see whether it was offside or not. Giving him a rest is potentially a good idea. But again, I just think he needs to have a good game. It didn't help that against Nottingham Forest, he got taken off from concussion. And so I just think he needs time, and everyone just needs to calm down.
I think that's the thing, and I think that's with all Spurs fans. I think, don't get me wrong, I'm probably someone that hold my hand up and say sometimes I do get a bit over my head and say things about players that you don't necessarily mean in terms of you're just frustrated. And we know that's the thing with Brennan. We know that there's a player and he's got a very high ceiling. It's just that final decision making. I think that's letting him down a little bit. But obviously, that was the first half. The second half came around, and the most annoying thing again, I know you've already mentioned it on the show, the fact of players turning up against Spurs. It had to be Rashford, didn't it, that put the ball in the back of their net.
Yeah, he's someone. Again, Rashford. There's been links with Rashford to Spurs in the past, and look, he's someone who appears to be a confidence player, and confidence is huge in football. I play football myself, and I know if I have a rubbish couple of weeks, the next week is probably going to be the same unless I have a good game. But yeah, look, he's as I alluded to, these players just seem to have the knack of scoring against Spurs when they're in a rut. So Dr. Tottenham and all that normally. So yeah, I mean, again, there's an element of luck in it that it went through Van der Ven's legs. And I even heard the commentator at one point. It may have been on the radio. I had the radio on and the TV at the same time, and they said, maybe Rashford, kind of preempted Van der Ven's legs in that. But I'm like, okay, this is getting a bit too far now. Look, he scored it. It's a very good finish, and all credit to him for doing that. But yeah, look, it was the knack. And again, even I've said it before. Even at that point, I was like, do you know what? I've still got faith in this side. We are depleted. We're missing our huge, strike force in Son, but we can still get back in this.
And I think that's the thing. I think, again, like Luke's already said this show, it's that element of luck, isn't it, Luke? And I know Wynnie's just mentioned it, but it's almost like that touch that Mickey Van der Ven has opened his body and the ball's gone through his legs. It's just unfortunate, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think there was too much of, like, as you say, defensive errors that actually led to the goals. I think the defensive errors happened in other times when they didn't score. But I still think Marcus Rashford is an unbelievable footballer. I think he is incredible. Like, some of the things he did yesterday, it just shows, as when he said, like, it's just confidence of a player. Like, I don't know if you remember, he was running down the wing and then he in the box, and then he cut one of the, I think it was Pedro Porro, went sliding by, and he just didn't take the shot quick enough. And it's things like that with him that, the reason why I'm mentioning this, because there have been links to Spurs, and I still think that he would be an incredible signing for any top club. But you'd have to get the right, that confidence back. And I think at Manchester United, that's just been sucked the life out of him. But these things happen. And again, what Wynnie said, with thinking that we can come back, it was still early doors, wasn't it? So there's still plenty of time for us to come back and win it.
It really was. And just like magic, that leads me on to Dan, in a sense that obviously that goal that we managed to get from Ventil was just insane, wasn't it?
It was just like knife through butter. Like, I think it was amazing. And I love that, it's like, start of the second half, that we just come out, like there must have been just a rousing team talk from Edge in there. But it was nice. Like, we just carved them open, and it was such a nice reminder to see that, again, even if I had that feeling sort of in the second half of this game too, that like, even if we don't win this, like we are in such better shape long term than this Man United team, because they've scored a few goals where there has been an element of luck in it. They do have some players with some skill. Of course, we can't like discount that, but ultimately looking at like how we're playing, how they're playing, I was just like, look, even if we did lose this game, I still am not concerned, because for us to go away to Old Trafford and still like outplay Man United, even when we're not playing at our best throughout the whole game, I was like, this is a football club, talking about Man U, that are in like serious trouble. Because like, if I was a Man U fan watching that game, I would still be disgusted with how things are going, and feel like I'll be like, oh, that was lucky. That was really, really lucky ultimately for that. So yeah, it was a beautiful goal. I think that for us to score, and just like to see Bentancur do it again, like, I think that's something that we've all been, missing a little bit, or we've been thinking like while he's been out, like, oh, imagine Bentancur getting on the end of these cutbacks in the box, and he could really do some damage in the system. So it was really, really nice to see him. And again, everyone was so calm in that move, and also Timo as well. Like, I was happy that he got an assist, and it wasn't the most challenging pass to play, but it was just a little bit of calmness. And it just shows that we can, carve up a team like that pretty easily. So I think as we go on, we're going to see more of that as everyone becomes more and more comfortable with that system.
Definitely. And like you said, it was a great finish. And Wynnie, for Timo Werner to obviously play his first game and to get an assist. I know Dan said it wasn't the hardest of passes, but you've got to be there to be able to do it, haven't you?
Absolutely. And it wasn't a difficult pass, but like you say, he had the vision to see that Bentancur was making that kind of little run into the box, that little jinking, and to pick him out. And yeah, you know what, he's the whole Timo Werner transfer is an absolute no-brainer, and it just came out of the blue for everyone. No Spurs fan could envisage this transfer happening, and then of course when it got released with the whole transfer fee or potential transfer fee, if we want to sign him, I mean it's peanuts compared to some transfers. So look, again, what we need to do is we need to get behind him. Obviously, he's played in the Premier League with Chelsea, and he was a bit hit and miss. So what we need to do is not what we're doing with Johnson, and just get behind him. If he has a bit of a stinker one week, look, we can, if we need to, we can replace him and bring in Brian Hill or someone else. So we've got a bit more, a bit more of a squad now. But look, I thought what I saw of Timo was absolutely fine, and I think he's going to work very well in this system.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think, like you said, it's a point where we just need to chill out as fans and let it be will be. And Luke, I think, obviously, I know when he's mentioned about what he thought of his performance. Is there anything you want to add to Timo Werner's performance? Because I know there were some people saying, oh, look at his shot. And I know when I was watching it with my mate that's a Man United fan, he was like, oh, there's Werner. I think it was one of the shots where they went really, really wide. And it's like, oh, come on.
Yeah, but then you've got to think he hasn't started a game for months. I don't know if it was October, I think, or could have been before then. The last time he played was a substitute appearance in the Champions League game, for Leipzig. He's not had a lot of minutes, and he's not match fit. Like, you can start a player in a game and they still can't be match fit. Do you get what I mean? Like, and so for him to come in a time when we needed him, with Decky being ill and not even in the squad, if he doesn't come in, then we have to start, unfortunately, with Brian Hill, and I still don't think he's up for it yet to be a starter in this team. And so I think he did all right. I think, there were times when, he tested a few shots with his right foot, from outside the box, and kind of tested his range a little bit. The only one that was unfortunate and that I wish he'd done slightly better on was he was running through. He wasn't necessarily one-on-one, but enough to be able to get a good shot off, and he just didn't hit the target. And for me, that, he will have to do better. But, you talk about his assist for Bentancur, like, it wasn't a hard pass, but the weight of pass was perfect, because then Bentancur can continue his run, and that momentum is what makes him score the goal. So you've still got to be able to do that, and I think it was a solid debut, definitely.
And I think, like you said, I think more will come. And here we've got the stat in terms of he's only played 17 games. So again, it is very, I don't want to say new to him because he is a footballer, but he needs to get back into his obviously stride again. But Dan, I want to come to you because obviously there's been games where this man has wound me up quite a lot. But you know what? I'm going to give credit where credit's due. And I think Oliver Skipp yesterday had a pretty decent game, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. I was really happy with him. There was one pass in particular, I think when he played it through to Werner, and he just kind of like hit it like almost just half volley, and was just like, is he like, the region of Perlo at this moment? Like what's going on? Like, it was so nice to see that. I think that, Skipp's someone who, like, he works very, very hard, and I'm just wary of us saying like a player works hard and that's kind of it. That's all we need. But I think he really does, and sometimes it doesn't really come off for him. Sometimes it does. I think that ultimately, like, if we were looking at Skipp as like starting in our team, then that would be a bit of a concern for me. But I feel like as a player who, I think someone said earlier, like, we're playing 4th, 5th choice midfielders here. I don't mind having Skipp in there. I think it would be something that, long term, maybe we might be looking to make an upgrade there. But ultimately as well, it's like, I don't think we can have an expectation that our whole squad is suddenly going to be like City, where you can have like 2 full strength teams. And also like that should be what every club has to do to compete. Like, I think that's kind of wrong as well. Like, I think that, you know, there is a role for a player like Skip at the moment. And yeah, it's just, if he's not starting every game, if he's just coming in when we are sort of like bare bones and we do have like, you know, 3 midfielders out, I don't have a problem with Skip at all. And I think that he had a solid game yesterday.
And I think I am very harsh on him purely because obviously he's there instead of Winks. But Wynnie, I think as well, obviously we've spoken a bit about that midfield and there was at times where I thought we were quite open. But to think, like Dan said, we've got Skip, we had Bentancur and then obviously Højbjerg. When you've kind of got that dynamic, you don't expect to be as open, but you can understand that obviously there's going to be a little bit of drop off of performance, isn't there?
100%. I mean, you know, Bentancur out of those 3 is the only one that would potentially start in a fully fit squad. So look, we've got to expect a massive drop off from everything. And look, it's one of those times where you'd expect them to be more defensively solid and, like you say, less open. But they've also then got to try and stick with Angie's philosophy and Angie's system, which is, you know, the quick, intense passing going forward. So, it's trying to get a defensive-minded midfielder to do that. It's not going to work as fluently as it would do with Madders in there, Basuma, etc. So I was pleasantly surprised, and like we said, just alluded to with Hollie Skip, I thought he had a great game, an absolutely great game yesterday, and for someone who is potentially bottom of the list of our midfielders who would be in there, who you'd be looking to put in there first. So if we've got options like that now, I'm more than happy with that. But we have to expect a drop off when we've got the likes of those 3 in the midfield. But they still done pleasantly well. So I'm quite happy.
And I think we've got, obviously, I know he's the man, he's the boss man, but I think we've got, obviously, Ange Postecoglou to thank for that, Luke, because it seems like for now everybody's on the same page. And the likes of Emerson, obviously, he's been dropped from the side, the start 11, but he's been playing most weeks since we've had the likes of Romero and Mickey van der Ven out. But he didn't seem too ticked off. And I know that he's a professional footballer, but do you know what I mean? He's going to have that in the back of the mind. But under Ange, that just doesn't seem to faze any of the players.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about Emerson Royale, he's another player who's played multiple positions this season. He's played left back, centre back, right back. His versatility has been incredible under Ange Postecoglou as well. And I think that it just shows you what it means to the players to play under Ange Postecoglou and to show kind of what he can give to those players as well. Is a lot of people before Ange came to Spurs were saying, well, where's he been? What's he done before? What leagues has he worked in? Right, it's only Scotland, etc. All the rest of it. One thing you can get more, you can have more than anything, any experience in the world, is a way to get your point across to individuals and a way to motivate your players through your words. And that is something that I'd love to hear in one of these conversations, because every single player that has joined this club has said the reason why I joined this club is because of him and the words that he said to me on the phone. And it must be the same for all of those players. Oliver Skip, I was watching him and Bentancur because I remember during the Barcelona pre-season game when Oliver Skip scored twice, and he said after the game that he'd been being taught by Ange to make late runs into the box. And I was watching him and Bentancur because at times he would move forward and then he would drop back and Bentancur would go forward again. And it was really interesting to watch the kind of the way that all the players are working together and kind of fluidity around them. So I think that all of the players that have come in have been brilliant. And yeah, yesterday we had our 5th and 6th, I would say, midfielders in Højbjerg and Oliver Skip, and they both did all right.
And I think it is purely, like you said, it's just the way the man talks. And I know we all joke and say when we watch his press conferences that he's just like your mate, but my word, he has got something about him, and I love him. But Dan, obviously we're on good high spirits at the moment, and to think, like Luke's alluded to, we've still got the likes of Maddison to come back into this side and others. It's just insane, isn't it?
Oh, it's ridiculous, and I think it's weird in a way. Like, Ange has accomplished so much, and especially for us in Australia, like we've followed him so far, and you see, we don't see an appointment like Ange. Like, we never see Australians, especially in like management positions, because it's kind of like, dumb Aussies, you run around a bit, you're not that good. You got Harry Kewell, Mark Viduka. Okay, fine. And like that's kind of like where it stops with a lot of Tim Cahill. Like we get occasional players that sort of do break through, but I still think that Ange is like, there is this little stereotype against him, like he's still a bit of a bumbling idiot just because, he's not from like a sexy football background. Like he didn't play for a glamorous club, didn't win like Champions Leagues as a player, all that sort of stuff. But I think that what is so nice is that just to see like how protective he is of players and like he's not rinsing them. Whereas I feel like we've had previous managers who, if a player did come in and didn't play that well, you've got like, Mourinho just like throwing shade towards Delhi. Even when he didn't play, it's like, why'd you lose today? Well, if I had players on the bench that were more committed than Delhi, then, and it's like, why are you saying this? Like, why are you going after this? So I really do think like, talking about players like Emerson coming in and that sort of stuff, like Ange he does so much work, obviously behind the scenes to build up their confidence, because you've got players here as well with so many different cultural backgrounds coming from all different places all over the world. And they're all speaking of Ange so highly. Like Basuma's been like, in multiple interviews, has spoken really positively of him. You have Dragosin is like, yeah, really great chat with Ange. And so it's just that like, he's obviously got this like magnetism to him, and these players just feel like they can trust him, that he's got their back, and they can see that when he's talking in press conferences, he's got a bit of bite if the journalists like sort of push him and like, can you imagine lifting a title? And he's like, I've got pictures, mate. What are you talking about? So it's like, I think he's like the most charismatic like manager we've had, in that sense that you had someone like maybe Redknapp who like, he was funny when he spoke, but I think to me, Ange has got just the all round package is just so perfect. And I still can't believe that like he is managing the team that I've supported all my life. And it's like, we have, someone who started in a very unglamorous league here in Australia and has taken a long time to work themselves up in this position. But I think his experience of managing for in a lot of different countries for a long time is shining through in all these areas.
No, and I don't think I could put it any better myself, Dan. It's like you said, he just is the all-round top geezer, as I think I'm going to call him from now on. And I know, like we've all said tonight, the fact that, okay, that the 2-2 against United, considering obviously the players that we had missing, considering the fact that obviously it was away at United, we went down twice and we still managed to come back, I think it's a true testament to Ange. But obviously we have got a little bit of a break now. But Wynnie, when we come back, obviously we have got the other side of Manchester, and we have got City in the FA Cup. And I mean, the only saving grace is possibly that it's at home. And I don't think they've scored a goal at our ground yet. So that being said, Wynnie, how are you feeling going into that one?
Look, I was watching. It's very rare that I watch, a live FA Cup draw or any kind of draw. But I happened to be able to watch that one. I was watching it intently. I was like, right, I've seen who we had left, and I was like, we could get, we could take them. We could take them, and then obviously we got the ball for us at home, and then it was Manchester City, and I was just look, their record for some reason at our stadium is crap, and I don't know what it is, because their team is phenomenal. But the only thing I can put it down to is that they don't, teams come and set up with a low block, etc. They just play the way they play. And that seems to suit us. When teams come and try and attack us, we can pick them off. But I don't know if it's some sort of hoodoo, whatever it is. But look, it's not ideal, let's be honest. However, we're going to probably have to meet them at some point. So why not get them out of the way? Because if I genuinely mean this, if we can get past Man City, I don't really fear anyone else. If we get a couple of home draws and stuff like that, then why not go far? But yeah, look, so I'm confident, but not confident, because it's obviously Man City. It has to come to an end at some point. They've got to score at our stadium at some point. But for now, we can, we're coming on the back of a draw. We've fought back twice against Man United, so why not be positive?
Definitely. And like you said, obviously, may this streak of them not scoring our ground continue for the FA Cup, Luke, eh?
Yeah, exactly. And when he said that exactly, at the start of the show, he mentioned how players always score against Spurs when they haven't scored in X amount of time. And now he's mentioning, records of Spurs not conceding at home against Manchester City. But, some have to come to an end, but also some get to stay as well. So I completely agree with Winnie, though. I think that you have to play big teams at some point. You have to beat the best to be the best. And so you shouldn't fear anybody in the FA Cup. Look, we can all crave and cry out for this easy draw. And, does anyone remember I think it was the Carabao Cup run under Jose Mourinho? We got a bye in the first round, and we got all the way to the final in that one. And that didn't help us either. So it's what do you want? Do you want the easy teams and then to moan and whinge when we get knocked out? Do you want a difficult team and then moan and whinge when we get knocked out? Which one do you want? Because it's not always going to be a victory. We're not always going to win. But you do have to beat the best. And the only thing that's infuriating for me is how good Kevin De Bruyne looked when he came on at the weekend, because that's a worrying thing for me, is how open we are sometimes at the back with his passing ability. I think that it could be difficult at times, but we've got to play like we play and see what happens.
I mean, I'm glad and I'm not glad you brought De Bruyne up, because Dan, I think that's the thing. I think the only saving grace is obviously Daddy Longlegs and Mickey van der Ven, in the sense that you'd like to think that he could probably chase the ball down if a pass went through him. But for you, Dan, how do you kind of see us going in to this one? I know we want to win, but how do you think it's going to go down?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. On Guardiola, I love that. I saw a clip maybe a week or so ago where they're like, Pep, what do you want for the new year if you could have anything? And he's like, an away goal to Spurs. And you can tell it's oh, nice gag. But then you can see in his eyes, he's like, this is what I want more than anything. So I love that we are just this thorn in his side that he just can't get rid of. I'm pretty sure Haaland is out. Is that right? That's the last I heard, that he was expected to miss the game. Not that we're going into this game oh, they got a player out. Okay, great. Now we're in with a chance, because I don't think Ange is going to be doing that. They're not going to be a training ground, for the whole week being well, boys, Man City this week. Wow, what a big. They're just going to go about their business and think that we don't care. We can beat anyone. We can take on anyone. So I do think that, it would have been nice if De Bruyne wasn't back right now and he was still out for a little bit longer, but I think that we just got to go about our business, and whoever is fit, if Maddison is back and he's by that stage he feels like he is ready and he's got confidence that he's past his injury and he can play, great. I would prefer us not to push Maddison and just go into the game with whoever is available, because hopefully we can get past them, and I think if we do get past them, we're a pretty good chance to win. Which also means that at that stage, I can upgrade my mug here, which I bought as the stupidest thing I could find on the Spurs shop, which says Carabao Cup finalists 2020-2021.
I remember when they released that, and it was just a horrific moment for everyone, wasn't it?
It's so wild, but then it made me think maybe it's genius, because they think that the people who do buy it are that's so stupid. I'm going to buy it because it's kind of funny. But hopefully I can get a new mug after this. Another finalist one.
No. A winner's one. That's what we want.
Well, I mean, it's not as funny, is it, Hollie?
I mean, there is that. I suppose there isn't a lot of comedic value, but I mean, it'd be nice to actually have a winner's one. But winners, I mean, Winnie, that being said, obviously, we've said about De Bruyne, we've said about the hoodoo, but in that kind of sense, you're also thinking this is the last cup we're in for this season. Angie's not going to play this down very lightly, is he? We're going to go all guns blazing, you like to think.
100%. And that just seems to be Tottenham's way now. Whatever opponent we have in front of us, whatever kind of competition, whatever's at stake, we just go and play the way that he wants to play. And it's so refreshing, because, when we've only got to look back at Chelsea, where, unfortunately we had some red cards and the game didn't go as we planned. But look, he stuck to his guns then, and we played that ridiculously high line with Eric Dyer at the heart of it. And it worked. For some reason, it worked. It kind of. Obviously, the result says different, but, we were kind of being applauded for it, because it was I remember Jamie Carragher saying, this is amazing. I could watch this every week. I hope he does this every week. And this is just the way Ange does it. And I absolutely love it. And as you say, he's not going to take it lightly, because look, it would be great. He obviously wants to win a trophy at any point with Spurs, but if he could do it in his first season, that accolade is something special. So all I can expect is we're going to go out there and just go all guns blazing, and just try and you know what, I think with Ange, it's almost just try and win the game by scoring more than them. Not necessarily trying to keep them out. Let's just score as much as we can and hope that we don't concede more than we score. So, and the Man City Tottenham games always seem to be entertaining. So I'm looking forward to it, to be fair.
Yeah, I think we all are, and I think it's like I said, the fact that this is the last kind of cup for this season, it's almost like, and obviously without Europe as well, Luke, it's kind of done us, I don't want to say a favour because you always want to be in Europe, but I've always said if we could win a trophy over being in Europe in that sort of time frame, you kind of want that, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. And go back quickly to Dan's mug. I remember when I was much younger, I don't know where it is now, and I'm really annoyed about it. I asked my dad the other day, but we can't find it. I used to have a mug with like really old Spurs crest on it, and then it had all the dates of all the trophies we'd ever won on it.
Oh,
it was brilliant, and I don't know where it's ever gone now. So Dan reminded me I need to try and speak to my dad and try and see if he's not throwing it out. But yeah, this season not having Europe is kind of like perfect because it gives Ange that time to bed his players in. You'd say to avoid injuries, but clearly that's got actually worse than what it should have done. But it's kind of perfect that we don't have Europe, but it's essential that we get back into Europe. This season really is the time where we do need to win something. I bet if you looked at betting odds now, you would get ridiculous odds on Spurs to win the FA Cup now because of the fact that we have Manchester City. If we don't win it, it doesn't mean that we're never going to win a cup again. It's just this would be a real shot for us to be able to focus on an FA Cup and the Premier League. But as Ange said at the weekend, Premier League's not out of the question, people.
I'll rate the optimism. I mean, Dan, are you kind of on the same vibe? Can we do a trophy and potentially maybe win the league? Which sounds a bit crazy for me to say, but I've said it.
The double is happening this season. I'm convinced that. So they'll be talking about the double team of 23-24 moving forward. But I agree with what's being said. Like, Ange is a winner. Like, he's not an idiot. He goes to places and he wins. Like, so even though he is this really nice, like, reaffirming figure, like, he wins trophies. Like, that's what he does as well. That's what he's done his whole career in a whole bunch of different environments. Like, moving to different countries, he doesn't speak the language. He goes there, he wins. I'm talking about Japan, not Scotland, but like, whatever you think of that. But he's got a track record that really sort of proves that, and he said this himself, that he's like, I love winning. And you could tell that this is someone who he's not just like a laid back sort of nice guy. Like, he is so driven to win. You don't get to his position, especially from like not being a glamorous ex-professional. Like, he played, but not to as high a level as a lot of other managers did. But you don't get there without being so driven and like obsessed with winning. Like, so I believe him. Like, and I think that if he's sitting there saying like, well, statistically, we can still win the league. So of course, I guess we're in the title race. Same with cups. Like, why then would I, as a fan, sit back and go like, no, I need to protect my emotions. I'm going to. Here's the reasons why I think we're going to go out and lose. It's like, no, I'm like all on board for the journey, and like Ange makes me think that we can do anything and we can keep conquering that. And I think that if we as the fans are doing that as well as the players, like, that's such a lovely place for everyone to be in together, rather than having like Ange and the players trying to have this and then the fans still stepping back and going like, no, we don't want to be disappointed again. I'm like, even if it is a bit naive at times, like, just go fully in on it. And like, I think that we honestly can, maybe double now sounds a bit much, but like, I think we can definitely win something this season. We'd need a few things to go our way in the league for that to happen, but I think the cup's a definite possibility.
100%. I mean, I love it when Luke comes on because he fills us with all this optimism and then I say crazy things. But I think, like we've all kind of said tonight, it's just a nice place to be. I mean, who would have thought this time? I mean, I used to say Hollie's Hotspurs was a therapy session every Monday, and now it's a totally different atmosphere. Not because the people I had on were depressed, but it just felt that we were saying the same thing every single week, and it's just nice to have a new breath of fresh air. But hey, hopefully we're through to the next round with Thrash City, and it's all happy days. But you know what, it's been amazing talking to all three of you tonight. So we'll go around the circle and we'll say our goodbyes. So Wynnie, thank you again for joining me tonight. Where can everybody find you?
Thank you very much again, for having me on. Park Lane Podcast, just like Luke down there, every Sunday, 7 p.m. And Wynnie 1991 on Twitter. So if you want to follow me. But make sure you do. I'm sure Luke will reiterate this. Get on Park Lane Podcast, and obviously if you're not subscribed to Hollie's channel, absolutely do that as well.
No, like I say, it's all. I love how the fan base, we all do content together. I know that I'm awful, Luke, at being able to make things, but I appreciate that obviously I've managed to get you on. So I promise in the next couple of weeks I will find the time to come on Park Lane Podcast. But that kind of leads me on to the intro to you, Luke, and the fact that thank you again for coming on tonight.
No, it's absolutely fine. And I did make a decision, by myself the other day, Hollie, that next time you ask me to come on your show, I'm only coming on if you come on my show. So everyone's heard it now. We've said it live on a show. So I'm only coming on if you come back on our channel. But yeah, more importantly, go and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Go check Dan out, Wynnie out, everybody that comes on this show, because it is important to, that we support each other as well. If you are interested in the content that we have, as Wynnie said, every Sunday night at 7 p.m. UK time, you can check out Park Lane Podcast on all social media platforms, including where you get your audio podcast from.
Love it. And like I say, I definitely will, man. I'm so bad. I have a calendar and I still can't bloody use the thing, but I appreciate it.
I tell you 2 minutes in advance. So
I will make sure that I am free in an upcoming Sunday. But thank you, Luke. And also, Dan, thank you so much again for getting up in the early hours of the morning. I do really appreciate it. Where can everybody find you?
No, always a pleasure. You can find me at Dan Spurs, and Barney and I, we do a bit Spursy. That's our pod, which it's a bit silly, I'd say. It's a very lighthearted. Sometimes we'll go for full episodes without talking much football at all. So once you've listened to Park Lane, once you've listened to Hollie Hotspurs, you've heard the intelligent breakdown of games, then come check us out for some buffoonery.
I love that. That is amazing. But no, thank you, Dan, so much again. Make sure you go check out all of these guys' channel. And I want to say a big thank you to everybody that's watching live, that's going to go back and maybe listen to it on the audio or is now watching it not live. I do really appreciate it. Obviously, there's no Hollie's Hotspurs live next Monday, but I am being lucky enough to interview the big man, Ledley King, on Friday. So I'm hoping to have a video out on Monday with that kind of being dissected. So hopefully you can watch that one. And until next time, come on you Spurs. Right, Elf, I pushed the right one.